Okay, guys have been asking me to, share my Velocidrone settings with them. So instead of doing a post, I'm just going to do a quick video here. So I'm not going to go into the controller settings. I'll go into these three settings here. These are the most important settings. So let's take a look at main menu settings. So I'm not going to talk about every single one of these because they're not all that important, but I'll let you see what my settings are. Probably the most important one is the camera, the control system polling. I have that set to fast. The other one to note is I don't like camera VTX noise, so I turn this off, and the rest of these are all personal preference. So I'm going to turn some of this stuff down now. And gate sound, swoosh, I do like to hear the swoosh sound when I go through the gate. So speed display, this is personal preference. The rest of these are personal preference. Lap time is great. The one that I do want to call out here is a single player race countdown setting. So immediate start is important if you're doing leaderboard smashing. What this does is as soon as you start the race, your lap timer doesn't start actually physically counting your lap time until you go through the first start gate. That's important for leaderboard smashing because if you start and you have, say, 100 yards to make it to your start gate, well, that could be 2 or 3 seconds in addition to your lap time. Uh, because when you use the 1, 2, 3 start, what this does is it counts down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. As soon as the gun goes off, your lap timer starts, and that can be problematic if you're doing leaderboard smashing. So I always run it at immediate start. The rest of these are again personal preference. And let's go to screen settings. This is probably the most important one. So auto adjust quality. I leave this at off if you have it turned on. If your minimum FPS rate drops below 144, you'll get a warning on the screen. This can be distracting when you're doing competitive single mode racing. Quality level, I have this set to fast. Many folks run this lower, like good or whatever. My configuration, I have no problems running it with fast. I don't run fastest, but I do run fast. I probably could run fast, or fastest, I mean. Screen resolution, my native monitor is a 16 by 9 monitor. And so in order to achieve a 4 by 3 aspect ratio, I run 1920 by 1440. This gives me the 4 by 3 aspect ratio that you see here on the screen with the black bars. I also run in full screen mode. Some people run in window mode. They have reported that they get better results in running windowed mode. I think that that's probably the case if you have a little bit lower end of a system. And the other item is the graphics rendering type. Set this to deferred. The rest of these, you can take a look at what they're set at. These are all default settings. Camera draw distance. This is, I have it set to low, but this is the quality of the graphics that are rendering in the distance. No need to have high quality items in the distance because that can impact your FPS. So I run it on low. Again, personal preference. The rest of these are all personal preference as well. Quad settings. This is extremely important here. So I run it on all the defaults. So drag front, top, side, lift down force. These all impact the physics and characteristics of how your quad flies only in open mode. That's very, very important. I'll repeat that. Only in open mode. When you go to single mode racing, that is the Velocidrone's spec class. What that means is that it will reset every attribute that you have changed that would alter the physics and characteristics of your quad in single mode except for your rates, right? This is important because if you alter these to create a quad that flies like point and shoot, so it flies basically very robotic, those settings won't be honored in single mode. And the reason for that is that they want every pilot with the best skills to win the race. If they allowed you to use these characteristics that you have set here, then it would be a disadvantage because not all pilots would be running those same characteristics that would alter their physics, right? So just keep that in mind that the game will reset these to the default. I recommend running them on the default. The reason for that is that if you get used to flying in open mode with the characteristics have been altered here, as soon as you go into single mode, you're going to wonder why it flies differently. Well, that's why. So I recommend you leave these settings by default. Camera field of view. Um, right now this is at 64. I run true lens, so this doesn't matter for me. So if you're running true lens, this has no impact on you whatsoever. Camera angle. I don't know why that's 45. I normally run 60, 58 or so, and you can change this in game too. Um, so propeller power, leave that 100%. Prop wash at 0. Min throttle, personal preference. So when you change this setting, it won't reset it to 150. So you could have this at 1030 or whatever. That doesn't give you really an advantage, or it doesn't alter the physics or how your quad flies. It alters uh, your inputs, right? Quad weight, leave it at 100%, because if you change this again, you go into single mode, it's going to reset it to 100 anyway. Propeller size, again, personal preference. You can change this in game. Camera compensation, I'm not going to go into any of these. These are all, again, personal preference. The only thing that I would point out here is battery simulation and your milliamp. So when you go in a single class race, it enforces battery simulation. So if you go into a race and it's a 2-minute race and you have this set to 1300, the game will honor what pack selection you have. So you won't be able to finish a 2-minute race typically on a 1300 mile pack. Uh, it's just if you're going all out. I mean, on a short course you may, but on a long course it's not going to happen. So most guys run 1800 or 1500. You can change this during the race or before the race starts, but you really need to know the format of the race before you do that. I just always leave it at 1800, and if I need to change it, I change it in game. So this is important, especially if you're doing single mode races. And I do run True Lens, and I run the micro, not I run the 2.1 is what I run. True Lens quality set to high. So let's go ahead and take a look at the game mode real quick. So this is what I was talking about. You run different classes. When you run open class, if you change those drag characteristics, the open mode will honor those. Again, I discourage changing them, because as soon as you go to single, it's going to reset them anyway. So get used to flying on the defaults. That's what I recommend. And plus, when you start competing, you just want to get used to it. So next, what we'll look
Ready
at,
to race.
let's just take a look at, here's the screen, quad settings, where you can change your battery size and all that. Remember, if you change these, it's not going to impact you in single mode. So don't even mess with those right there. So let's take a look at the other thing that's probably the most important thing, are your rates. The default DPS, which is 666, is typically too high for racing. That is fine for acro, and you may even want higher for acro rates. I typically run about 1050 for acro, but for racing, this is what I'm currently running. This may work for you, it may not. So this is something, again, personal preference, you'll need to tinker with. And that pretty much does it, guys. So I hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching.